is an idea. It is, in a way, a theory. And I've been defending it for as long as I can remember. Since the time I left the Times Free Press as an editor, I was a copy editor at the Times Free Press, and had the same job for almost 25 years. You can tell how unambitious I am and how much I like being in the news flow, in the news business. Why would a man be in the same job without a promotion for 24 years? Either he's a slug, or there's something about the news business which just it keeps a person in raptures, even though he's doing sort of the same job every day. I did for many years just copy desk work under old Stanton, the late Stanton Palmer, and then Rick Moore came to take over as the news desk chief, and the papers merged. The Chattanooga Times failing for lack of a succession plan, and the Chattanooga News Free Press also, in a way, failing for lack of a succession plan and being in the disadvantageous publication schedule, which is afternoon, merging together and then being bought by, well, they were the TFP was bought by Waco Media out of Little Rock, and then there was a merger of the two newspapers, and about 15 years ago or so. And at that point, I was named to be the copy editor in charge of business, since I have a proclivity for business and free enterprise and economics, doing a lot of reading in those fields and having really a lot of views about things that pertain to prosperity. And then I did that assignment. Not ambitious and content with the poverty wages, you might say, of the news business and the newspaper field, but there I was, and and here I am now, having an interest in these topics and covering local economy and the free market. The local economy is not the same thing as local economy. Again, that being an idea, and the idea is the concept that we can make ourselves prosperous here, apart from borrowing from the good people, apart from government, apart even from the financialized, debt-oriented national and international capital economy. Now, that economy it may be in view with our caller. We have a caller here on the phone. This is David Tulis. And caller, what's on your mind? Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, David, it's Alan Valenzuela. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Alan. Well, listen, thanks for calling. You're on the air live, and we're just watching the video on TV9 about the car that was burning on the side of the road. Would you mind giving my listener a report of that story and what you did to help that distressed traveler on the side of the road? What happened, Alan?
So, I was driving from Ooltewah to the Chattanooga area, and I could see the smoke from a distance, and I thought, it's got to be a car burning. So I pulled my phone out and decided I was just going to video it as I go by. And if you're watching the video, you can see I'm swerving off the left to get out of the way. So I get close to this car that's on fire. I'm shocked that there's a woman there pulling stuff out of this car. And by the time I got there, this thing is on major fire at this point. And I'm worried about her. I'm thinking, what on earth is she doing? So I'm going to go convince her to get away from that car before it explodes. And I know that they probably build cars better, so explosion is probably not as big a risk as it used to be. I don't know, but I was afraid for her life. So I got out of the car, I ran to her, and she had a lot of personal belongings in the trunk of this car. I don't know if she was traveling. She was from Panama, and I kept telling her, I said, look, just come back here. Stop worrying about your stuff. Your stuff isn't worth it if you die. And so I try to get her back, and you can see in the video, she's going back, and she's going back. So I'm trying to help her. And, I'm torn because I'm thinking, okay, we're both going to die here. This is silly. But at some point, she finally does give up, and we're kind of out of the camera's eye when she kind of just falls into my arms. She's trembling. She's in shock. She's tearful, and I felt like at that moment she had lost everything, and so she's in shock, and I don't know what happened to her. As you can tell in the video, I stay until is it TDOT? What do they call themselves here? The emergency.
Yes, the yellow Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security safety trucks. That's right.
Yeah, so they got there and they got involved and were grateful and basically took over, backed me back into the traffic as you see me driving by trying to freehand video this thing. But I didn't hear what happened to her or anything else. You can, if you're watching that video, one of the other things that's interesting is I watched it later around the 2-minute 30-second spot. There's an explosion inside that car. You can see it blows out the passenger and driver's side window. And it just goes to show you anything could happen when a car is on fire. I think the thing that disturbed me the most about this is the fact that she was trying to get stuff out of it, but nobody had pulled over to help. That kind of freaked me out a little bit, why nobody pulled over to help. My family's been in a similar situation like this where somebody with a fire extinguisher actually came over and blew this electrical fire from under the dash, and that's what she told me happened in her car. Used a fire extinguisher, and there was trucks driving by, and these trucks all have fire extinguishers. You would have thought maybe one or two of them might have pulled over and just helped extinguish this thing. Now it wasn't major flames when I got there, so it may have been, frivolous to try and put it out with the extinguisher, but people weren't pulling over. I found that interesting.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with Alan Valenzuela. Alan Valenzuela owns 9 or 10 Alliance Physical Therapy clinics here.
10 clinics. We just opened the Dalton clinic.
Okay, so Alan Valenzuela owns 10 clinics, part of Alliance Physical Therapy, which he built from scratch as an immigrant into this country, and an entrepreneur and businessman. And you may have, in time past, heard his program here on Nooga Radio. Alan, so the woman, as far as you know, had to leave some. You convinced her not to go back, so she left some of her belongings in the deeper part of the trunk of that burning car.
There was actually a piece of equipment in there, and I almost went back for it myself because it looked like it was a nice piece of equipment. I don't know what it did, but I'm thinking this thing's going to explode, and what if that thing's already heated and I grab it and it burns my hand or something. So I left it. I finally convinced her she needed to move on, that if it did explode, it probably wouldn't hit this stuff she put on the ground. But she was devastated. So.
And she was by herself, no children or
She was. I didn't ask her if she was traveling, but when I asked her where she was from, she said she was from Panama. So she may have been traveling with the amount of stuff, personal stuff she had in her car.
And did it look like
she had a lot of?
What about the back? What about the back seat, Alan Valenzuela? What about the back seat? Was it full of personal belongings as well, or was it just the trunk that she was working on?
I got the impression from her there was still a lot of stuff inside that car, because I know she left her cell phone in that car as well. But there was no getting. By the time I got there, there was no getting inside the car. How she had the mind to get in her trunk is beyond me.
So she had her key evidently with her to pop that trunk open. And what about her purse? Did her, with her ID and her cash, did that? Do you know if that escaped the flames, Alan?
I have no idea. I don't know if it was in that stuff she'd gotten out. I think that she would have, as relentless as she was about getting the other stuff.
Well, Alan Valenzuela, thank you so much for joining us here at the David Tulis Show on Nooga Radio. Thank you very much for calling.
All right, David. You have a great day.
Alan Valenzuela owns and operates 10 Alliance Physical Therapy clinics here in Chattanooga. Great place to have the aches and pains worked out of your body. And he's explaining to us what happened in a story that we're seeing here on TV9's website, his video of approaching a burning car. He pulls behind the automobile, and in front of him is the woman who's the traveling woman. Maybe she may be a driver. As she is pulling things out of the back of the car and trying to haul it away from the flames, fearing, of course, that the car will explode and injure people and injure surroundings. But in the video, I've not seen the whole thing. There is the arrival of a state emergency vehicle, the yellow Department of Safety and Homeland Security vehicles that are concerned about commercial traffic and safety on the public right away there on the highway. And he says that this truck showed up and helped get the fire under control by some extinguishing method. This is David Tulis, and we're arguing about loving our neighbors and buying local here and making sure that you know about Dahlia's. Go to Dahlia's and mention Sean Hannity, and you'll get 10% off your bill. If you have a $10 bill for a lunch for two, you'll get $1 back there at the counter in South Saudi Daisy. That's Dahlia's Authentic Mexican Restaurant in South Saudi Daisy. We are the CBS radio news station here, and also NASCAR and Sean Hannity. Every day we have Sean Hannity at 3 o'clock. And also, let me ask you this: is Colin Cowherd a good enjoyable show to listen to? I'm thinking maybe of having some financial news, maybe Bloomberg. We haven't nailed everything down yet, but what do you think? What should we be having in the afternoon? Our number is 800-8949, 800-8949. This is David Tulis, and we've been talking about the question of being difficult and being direct and taking responsibility. Now, I think Alan Valenzuela is a perfect example of my own ideas about taking charge and taking responsibility. He saw a woman on the side of the street, and no one else was helping her. Dozens had passed her as her car burned. He saw the smoke from the car from a great distance, and as he approached, with a heart for a caring man, he's in the physical therapy field, Alan Valenzuela, a caring man, pulled over and again tried to dissuade her from going back to get more items of personal property from the trunk, and he helped her get some of it out. And then finally he said, "Ma'am, this is just too dangerous. You just need to not go back there." And at which time a state vehicle arrives with some fire extinguishing equipment for a burning car on a highway here in Chattanooga, heading in from Ottawa. And Alan Valenzuela is a take charge kind of guy. Now I'm the same way. And it is in some respects kind of cranky. I have a discussion with my wife about the things that I cover. She does not listen to my show. I mean, very few people in my family listen to my show. In a way, I'm glad because I wouldn't hear the end of comments about emphases and guests and comments and the like, at the dinner table. So it's good that I can come home and not have to hear recriminations about emphasizing this or praises for bringing that up. I can just be home and the home life absorbs me and I absorb it. And is it being cranky to talk about the Tennessee Valley authorities seeming expansive exercise of jurisdiction over traffic? Now there is you might say a loophole in the Tennessee Code that says that the agency, which is a coal burning utility, this energy company, a federal energy company that has the force of death on its side because it is government, has the power to make arrests for public offenses, quoting here the Tennessee Code, committed against TVA officials or employees, or it goes on to say committed upon, about, or against TVA property, or on public roads or rights of way passing through or over such property, and while in pursuit of a person fleeing after committing such an offense, may pursue the person and make arrests anywhere in the state. So there is seemingly a grant of total jurisdiction. If you so much as touch a TVA property, of course, the whole region, right, the whole Tennessee Valley is a sort of separate state within a state, a TVA state, if you will, a TVA fiefdom. You effectively, as Scott Fiedel, the spokesman, said, you effectively can be arrested for a traffic offense in a neighborhood miles from any TVA-controlled lake, miles from any TVA facility. But if TVA, since we're in the district, we can be cited to some kind of court. I couldn't determine which court the officers cite, to which officers cite people. I couldn't have him tell me what court it was, maybe because I didn't ask him. But how is it that can be? And my questions are dumb man questions. I am the slow man of Chattanooga. I'm said to be the smartest man in Chattanooga, David Tulis, probably because I wear a bow tie, right? But I think that it's more accurate to say that I'm the slow man of Chattanooga. I just ask the dumb questions. And I hope that you'll understand that sometimes in journalism, the question is better than the answer. And I want to be the journalist in Chattanooga serving the public interest, right? Serving the common man, the public interest, that would be you, my listener, serving you with the dumb questions, because the dumb questions often have like the jester in the King's Court, the smartest analysis, right? That's what it takes to be a jester in a medieval court. You understand things as they are and make jokes about them. And because people are laughing, they don't feel the hurt that is the truth in the joke. And here, my slow man questions are, I hope, suggesting the hurt. And maybe if we are smart about it, we can laugh at TVA. We can laugh at this disproportionality of a company that has billions and billions of dollars in debt, running multiple coal burning plants all around the South, concerning itself with a mom's incorrect tag on her car, a tag which is a piece of metal about a tenth of an inch thick, about a foot and a half long, and about 7 or 8 inches or 9 inches tall. It has some numbers on it and a little logo of Tennessee. That tag has a date on it. That tag is connected in the state computer with a particular car, also called a motor vehicle. And that tag ostensibly is a proof of that motor vehicle being used in commerce as a public carrier for hire. That we're all involved in that, whether we know it or not. We are involving ourselves in commerce, and I think I'm about ready to publish my analysis in the next few days, maybe about statutory construction. I know that sounds awfully boring, but there is a way of understanding how laws are written and how they work, and it's a review of Tennessee court opinions on how statutes are to be understood. And in fact, if you read the Tennessee driver's license application statute, it's entirely voluntary. No one has to be involved in that. It's written voluntarily, and so is the must exhibit on demand statute. Now, I think that the must exhibit on demand statute is going to be used against Anthony Gladden. Anthony Gladden was the man behind the wheel the night that Demetrius Coonrod, the city council member, was arrested. She was stopped in a car that was pulled over by Tiffany Lentz, the chirpy and somewhat easily offended city officer, in mid-June. And he's charged by reports of driving without a license. Now, there is no charge driving without a license. That doesn't exist. But there is a charge called violating the must exhibit on demand statute. Now, that statute clearly does not apply to Anthony Gladden if he doesn't have a license, right? If he's traveling without a license, that statute cannot apply. And the reason is, and I don't think I can find it right here, right quickly in this in the code here. I've got the wrong volume. But it says that a licensee must exhibit licensee's license when demanded by any deputy, sessions court judge, officer, or something else. I mean, that's what it reads like. So the word license or licensee is in there 3 times. Clearly not applying, cannot be made to apply to someone who's not a licensee, right? Now, that you might say, well, that's just a nicety, David Tulis, and you're just pulling a lawyer on us. Well, that's I'm not. I'm just saying that's the statute applies to licensees and can't be used against Anthony Gladden if he's not a licensee. Now, he told me in a conversation that he is a licensee from another state and that there was some kind of infringement by non-payment of a fee or fine upon that license in the other state. So he may actually be a licensee in commerce in another state. And so he just has to show that has been cleared up and give evidence of that to Judge Gary Starnes or other judge in city court where he would be cited for this traffic offense of being involved in a car with an out-of-date tag on the back. So I analyzed that at Nooganomics.com. We are brought to you by the way, Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. Only people who matter go there, and so it's not very popular. And I will never be a popular writer because I write for people who matter and who want to know what is important. Okay, and so the things that I write about often ignore the headlines, and that's because the headlines are just that. They're just sort of froth, but they're not getting to the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue for me in helping you, my listeners, how do we understand the laws that exist, and how do we live a freer life? Now, freedom in terms of what God has given man, freedom, the biggest freedom you can have is freedom from sin, freedom from lust and coveting and the sin of fear, right? Those are all sins. To fear men rather than fearing God, that's a sin. And so my goal is to help people to fear God first and love God as a man, right? In my personal calling. And here it's a little bit, it's somewhat connected with that. But here the goal is to encourage people to be optimistic, to be positive, to love free enterprise, to love small business, to start their own small businesses, and to serve their fellow men in a godly way, thinking of service, thinking of their families, thinking of their customers, putting other people first, right? That's called being other-centered. Now, this is David Tulis, and I am the leading Nooga-centrist. Dave Crockett may dispute that, but he and I have been discussing who's the leading Nooga-centrist. He says he is. I say I am. But you can judge for yourself. And call me tomorrow at 800-8949, 800-8949. That's my number. We'd love to talk with you. David Tulis.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio.